Hi, welcome to another edition of Community Connections with MFi. I'm Evan Weisenfeld, your host, President of Medfield Foundation. Today I'm here with Christian Donner, representing the Friends of the Medfield Rail Trail. The Medfield Rail Trail is a proposed 1.3-mile long section of the Bay Colony Rail Trail. It follows the corridor of the inactive Bay Colony Railroad, and the converted trail will run from Harding Street near Medfield Junction to the Dover line, somewhere between Farm Street and Hunt Drive. Welcome, Christian.
Thank you, Evan. Thanks for having me.
Very excited for you to be here tonight and to give us an update on things going on with the rail trail.
Looking forward to it.
Excellent. So let's jump in. Before we, sort of dig into the rail trail, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've lived in Medfield, and what you like to do in your free time?
Well, certainly. My name is Christian Donner, and my wife and I moved to Medfield in 2005 with two children who were just about to enter school at that point. And my younger one graduated this year, or is about to graduate. I was hoping that when we started working on the rail trail that they would still be able to use it. That wasn't the case, but we'll get to that.
Well, welcome. Congratulations on your daughter's graduation. And I look forward to hearing more about, when we might be able to use this. So let's jump in a bit. You're here representing the rail trail. Can you tell us a little bit more about what a rail trail itself is, and why we might want one here in Medfield?
A rail trail is a converted railroad corridor that is no longer in use. And because, especially in the northeastern United States, there are so many unused corridors, or many are being converted to rail trails, have already been converted. There's still a lot more projects that are in progress or planned. That puts these corridors to good use that would otherwise just decay and overgrow. A lot of times people use it for dumping trash or that sort of activity that nobody really wants. So converting these corridors to trails and put them to use, people will be spending time there, and there is foot traffic, bike traffic, is a good way of keeping the land assets in a maintained condition and visually appealing. So that is one of the many reasons why we want rail trails.
So it's an alternate use of something that existed for many, many years with a right-of-way, train tracks down the center that no longer being used, and now people are finding alternate uses. So it sounds like a great option.
That is correct, and there are many, many projects across the country. There are famous rail trails. The Minuteman Bike Path in Lexington, many have heard of it or even used it, is one of the more famous one because it's very old, started in the 70s. There's also a national organization, the Rails to Trails Foundation, that helps a lot of these projects to get off the ground, and they have legal advice. And in many places there are land ownership issues, and it costs money to reacquire properties that have been sold off. In Medfield, we're lucky that's not the case. It's all still intact. The right-of-way is intact, owned by the MBTA, and the MBTA was willing to lease it to us for $1 for 99 years.
So that's a great opportunity, a $1 lease for 99 years. You mentioned other rail trails in other communities. What would you see as the benefit to the community of actually allowing a rail trail to be built in its community?
So we see that in towns relatively near to us. The Upper Charles Rail Trail, it connects the towns of Milford and Holliston and is planned to go into Sherborne and Ashland as well. Even in those few years that I've lived here and that I've made it to downtown Milford, and anybody who must have noticed the big difference that the rail trail made. It was from an area where junk cars were parked to now what is a park and a real asset in the downtown area, and it is more developed. I think it helps raising property values, make communities more appealing. Also, it gets people outside. They can spend time outside, be active, and so there's a health benefit. And Those are the two most important ones, I think, that we like to point out.
Yeah, that's great. How and when did you actually get involved in the project?
So it's funny, there was in 2009, I believe, early in 2009, so only about 4 years after I moved to Medfield, there was a post, I believe, on Facebook. No, actually, it was different. I had a blog at the time, may not even have been on Facebook, that was a long time ago, but I had a blog and I posted a little note about this rail corridor that was inactive and why nobody had started to do something with it. And then I got a phone call from a person in Needham, Tad Staley, who saw my post, wanted to start working together. And so with the third person, we started the Bay Colony Rail Trail Association, turned it into a nonprofit corporation. And it was a success story in that it brought 4 towns together. The Needham Trail is completed today. You can go and use it. It runs from High Rock Street to the Charles River on the Dover side, and will soon go all the way to Chestnut Street so that you can get to the commuter rail station there. And the Newton Trail is also finished. At least I believe the town line is the Charles River, so it's actually finished all the way to the Charles on the Newton side as well. It gets a lot of use there because it runs parallel to Needham Ave, which is a busy business district, and people are using it.
So you've been involved since, call it 2009.
Yes.
We're now in 2021, and you've been working for a long time to try to get us to this point where we can actually have a Medfield Rail Trail.
Yep.
I understand that the town of Medfield recently signed the lease with the MBTA, and that we're waiting now on just the final signature from the MBTA that would allow us to actually kick off the project.
That is correct. These are very exciting times, and it has, as you correctly observed, it took us a long time, and for many years there was very little movement. And right now we are really ready to start working with boots on the ground, start clearing, and get this done, hopefully this year. That's the plan.
Why do you think it took so long to get where we are today?
So it was twofold. One, the bigger part of it was just finding the money. We were always committed to funding the project and not making this a burden on the taxpayers in Medfield. And that took 2 state grants of $100,000 each. And so we got the first one in 2018 and the second one last year. And with that and the money we had raised from private individual donors here, we have now about $280,000 in the bank, so to speak, and that will be sufficient to finish what we call phase 1 of the trail, and that is so first the removal of the rails and ties, and then just putting a stone dust surface in, so grading rough gravel underneath, and then the stone dust surface on top. And we believe that that amount will cover those 2 things. And then there will be more work down the road, of course, but those will be smaller projects, and we'll continue to work on fundraising and getting those done.
I remember meeting with you very early on in the project, and at the time there was this idea that the rails themselves could be dug up and sold for scrap metal, and that they were worth something, and that it was actually net positive to remove the rails, and or at least it would offset some cost. I suppose at this point we're nowhere near there.
So I'm glad you asked, because I was just going to bring this up on my own. There's some recent good news, which is that the price of the steel is really going up, and it has tripled almost. And that's good for us because it will actually contribute positively to the bottom line of the project. But you're correct. The initial plan was to work with this company called the Iron Horse Preservation Society that did a number of projects in the Northeast where they would build a rail trail for free. Basically, they came in, took the metal, took the ties out, and the value of the steel funded the project and gave them a little profit. That collapsed. That business model collapsed around 2012, just because the steel price fell below a level that made that financially viable.
But I'm glad to hear that, you know, prices have gone up recently, and that can help contribute to the
Absolutely.
overall
Yes.
cost of the project. That's great news. Some of the challenges I know that you faced early on included some concern from the neighbors that abut the corridor. The Hunt Club has a lot of property in the area, and we're concerned that the dogs might be distracted by the trail. I know that there are some neighbors who express some concern about sort of not in my backyard kind of a thing. And some, you know, might just be generally concerned, but still supportive. How is it that you're addressing those concerns, and, you know, where do things stand both with the Hunt Club and with the abutters?
So that is also a wide field to discuss. There are, over the years, because the project took so long. Yeah, I've met with so many people over all the years, and with the booth on Medfield Day, and also in the other towns, frankly, just spoke to many people about their concerns. And you're right about the Hunt Club. I think it's all about communication. We were lucky enough to have a person who is close to the management of the Hunt Club, and many of the members work with us here in Medfield. And so having that communication channel, being able to hear the concerns and to offer potential solutions, went a long way. And the relationship is actually, I believe, one of mutual appreciation, and we feel that we're working on the same goal in a way, to keep the open space accessible. And one of the concerns was that the trail would be sort of a barrier for the horses, and they wouldn't be able to use it or couldn't cross it. But we know from other towns around here, Holliston in particular, that the Stone Dust Rail Trail does not necessarily get destroyed, or the impact of the hoofs of the horse are, you know, if it's well made, well built and compacted, it will withstand that, and there's no damage to the surface, and therefore there's no reason to not let horses use the rail trail.
I love hearing that there's collaboration and communication and negotiation and trying to find a solution that can benefit both sides. I think we would do well to do more of that around here.
And I mean, the conversation in some ways is a similar one that we're having with some of the abutters who voice concerns about privacy. And there is a model that we will try to replicate that worked well in Needham for that, and it is to offer constructing barriers with the homeowners, visual barriers, and that was done in Needham. So homeowners there would say, we want a fence, or we want, you know, plantings, and then the rail trail had a budget, or gave them a budget to work with, and then paid for that up to that amount. Whether we can do this in Medfield depends on the overall financial situation. I don't know that, but it is one of the things that we'll be certainly looking at.
So that involves the potentially additional fundraising.
Correct.
And
yes.
that's a phase 2 kind of a project?
We'll see. You know, I really don't have a good idea of how much the impact of the steel price will be on our cost estimates. It could be that there's enough money left over at the end of this phase 1 that we can do this right away. It could also be that it takes a year or so.
Okay.
We'll see. Similarly, the parking lot on Icehouse Road is where it's planned for now. Will not be there initially, and, you know, signage on the road crossings, and that will be finished over some elapsed time after we officially declare the trail open.
Right. And you already mentioned this, but I want to reinforce this, that this is not going to cost taxpayers anything. Is that correct?
That is correct. We are actually talking to the DPW right now to help with the clearing, and the so we'll pay for that.
So the town will actually make
Town
money
will
on
make
this.
money on the project if they help us with some of the work, and they have indicated that they might be interested in doing more than that. So we'll continue that conversation. But I don't foresee there to be any cost to the town from this rail trail. Maintenance is a somewhat known factor going forward because we have the data from Needham, we have data from other trails, stone dust finished trails, if they are well built, and we have the specs to how it needs to be done, and we have a gentleman who will oversee the construction, and we have the invitation for bids already drafted and ready to go out as soon as we get the signature from the MBTA, which could be this week, could be next week, but it's very close. And so everything's ready to go. We're ready to get this started. We will order straw wattles. That's one of the first things that needs to go out. We're planning to do this ourselves with volunteer help, and I'll be reaching out to everybody I know and don't know. And then, so with the DPW hopefully doing the clearing, we should be, before the summer, we should be in a position to get the equipment in there, get a contractor in there, pull the rails and ties out.
You mentioned in terms of some of the fundraising that you got a state grant. Are there deadlines or timelines that we should be concerned with that you have to use the money by in order for us to be able to retain that grant?
There are such deadlines indeed. COVID worked a little bit in our favor because they were extended. Initially, it looked for a while that we have to spend the first $100,000 by June of this year. That is not actually the case. We have until June of next year. And then the other one will expire at the end of this year. So that gives us enough time. And those grants being reimbursement grants, we have to actually have spent the money to be able to claim it back from the state, get reimbursed. And so it's not, we don't get the money up front. We have to have the work done already, or at least spend some of the money. But because the projects are broken down into smaller pieces, there is some flexibility in how we spend it, and we can juggle between the part that we have raised, which contributes to the state grants as a match. The towns are required to have a 20% match for these grants. We have that, and we can spend that first or hold it back, spend the grants first, whatever works.
That's good news. And then in terms of the private donations, the Friends of the Medfield Rail Trail is actually a Medfield Foundation initiative. So you are under the sort of the nonprofit umbrella of MFI. Yes. And what is it that you did to raise the funds? It sounds like you said you raised maybe $80,000 roughly?
Yes, that's a combination of funds that the Medfield Foundation has in our account and funds that were raised before we joined the Medfield Foundation as a nonprofit under the Bay Colony Rail Trail umbrella. And so there is still a portion of money in that account that is earmarked for Medfield that we'll be able to spend.
Excellent.
And I believe here the balance is somewhere between 40 and 50,000 right now. I'm not sure.
And are you still trying to raise funds now, or is that something you're sort of holding off on?
We're always trying to raise funds. There will not be an over, how should I say that? We will not have too much. I think there is enough that needs to be done or can be done. And I'm just thinking of safety railings and landscaping.
Signage.
And then we also want to establish a maintenance fund going forward so that there is a little cushion in case something needs to be repaired. We have to, there's some water features along the trail. If we have a big storm, conceivably, there could be some washouts. Then, we need to spend a little money to have that fixed.
It's one of the things that Medfield Foundation was founded for, which was really to raise private money to support the public need and improve the quality of life in the town of Medfield. this seems to me to be just such that kind of a project that allows us to improve the quality of life and use private money to support this without having to increase taxes on the overall community.
I'm so looking forward to seeing this open and active and people on it. I have been driving through Holliston for years now, and the area where the rail trail now crosses downtown, it's a little bit on the Millis side, but the area used to be neglected and shuttered buildings and closed bars and trash everywhere. And now it's a vibrant center of their community, and I think we will see some of that as well. Even though the trail is a little bit, it doesn't really go through the center of the town, but it's close enough, and there are some assets along it that will make it worthwhile to get on it.
And if people are interested in donating, the best way to do that is?
The best way to do that is to go on the MFI website. And
so we're going to put up on screen now a link that will take you directly to the Medfield Foundation website, medfieldfoundation.org/give. And in your donation, you can earmark that to the rail trail.
That's correct.
Excellent. We talked a little bit about next steps. So it's signing the lease, and then it's doing the clearing work and removing the rails and putting down the crushed stone. And if all of that were to sort of go in the order in which you think, approximately when, and we won't hold you to it, approximately when do you think people might actually be able to get out there on a trail?
It depends on the weather. So, I mean, that's obviously a cheeky thing to say, but the plan is to have, before the end of the year, to have a finished trail.
And the end of the year being 2021.
21,
so before
2021.
Okay.
Yeah, so in the spring of 22, it could be widely used and frequented.
Or people could cross-country ski on it in the winter. Is that an option?
That is another good topic. Yes, absolutely. We'd love to see that. The question I sometimes get asked, will it be cleared when there's snow? I don't know. I probably would say no. The town certainly will not clear it. I don't think I want to clear it, or any other volunteer wants to clear it, just because it's stone dust. It's not good for your snowblower.
Sure.
And the other reason is then it wouldn't be accessible to cross-country skiers. And I just bought myself a pair of touring skis last winter that I'm looking forward to use on the trails and on the Hunt Club property, which also has some great cross-country skiing, and it's right next to it. So yes, probably not going to be plowed or cleared, and great for cross-country skiing. We don't want to see motorized.
No, those are typically prohibited on rail trails.
Yes, so snowmobiles, quad bikes, dirt bikes, that kind of stuff will be very much frowned upon, and we'll try to keep those folks off the trail.
Well, this is all very exciting. I can't wait to get out there myself. As we wrap up, is there anything else that you would want local residents to know about the Medfield Rail Trail, how to get involved? What else should they know about?
So, yes, thank you for that cue. I want to point folks to our Facebook page. There is a Facebook page for the Friends of the Medfield Rail Trail, and actually, I believe it's part of the Bay Colony Rail Trail Facebook page, where we will post updates about progress and ways to get in touch, and also reach out and ask for volunteer laborers.
So please like and follow the Medfield Rail Trail on Facebook.
Please find us on Facebook, and there will be some opportunities to actually follow through on, in some cases, people who have offered to help and volunteer in the past to actually do that now. For a long time, there wasn't really anything I could offer. But now we have some real work that needs to be done, and it will start with getting those wattles out.
This is your rail trail, so this is your opportunity to step up and show how much you want this and how much you'll take advantage of it. So like and follow Medfield Rail Trail on Facebook. make sure you reach out to Christian or respond when he posts on any of the Medfield websites. So Christian, thank you very much for coming in. We really appreciate it. We're really excited to see where we can take this and how much it can really improve the life of the residents of Medfield.
Thank you, Evan. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to tell the story.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in again tonight. This has been another edition of Community Connections with MFI. We look forward to seeing you in an upcoming episode. Thank you. Bye-bye.